Hello dear watercolors friends, and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be addressing the question of how to improve your perspective drawing for watercolor painting and also how to create the basis for a realistic urban scape. I'm going to be showing you the main techniques and just an easy to follow up guide on how to create a better painting, whether that be from your own imagination or using a reference photo. So I'm going to be starting with the bird's eye level 1-point perspective drawing. I'm going to be showing you in this image kind of like the general feel of the sketch. We're starting with 1 point, which is going to be called the vanishing point. All the lines that are going to be in perspective are going to be drawn towards this vanishing point. So I'm making the base of these skyscrapers, and then I'm extruding up using these radial lines to create the top of the building. To make this sketch, I'm only using radial lines, horizontal and vertical lines. You can do square shape or rectangle for your building shape according to however your composition you want to look like. You can make them taller or shorter. I varied a little bit just to have an impression of the city here. It's the part of the city. So I am using the warm tone, which is an azure yellow. I'm using M-gram here, but it really doesn't matter. You can use any yellow or orange you have in your palette, and it should do the same thing. It should work as a suggestion for where the light hits certain planes. And then I'm using the combination of that manganese violet and the blue to create the shaded areas. Now moving on to the human eye level. Same 1-point perspective drawing. This is going to be probably the most common perspective drawing you're going to be making. This one, and 2-point perspective drawing from the eye level, from the human eye level. For this one, the same. I'm using one vanishing point, and I'm drawing my horizon line this time, which is going to be on the lower side of the painting, because the buildings are going to be at least 4 or 5 times taller than the person. For this sketch, I'm not doing skyscrapers. I'm just doing these 2-3 story buildings that are going to go towards that vanishing point. It can be a narrow street, maybe in Italy or even somewhere in Europe, even France, somewhere in Europe. And then all these lines on the ground, they can be, maybe it can be a stone road, and then you can emphasize that perspective with the radial lines and also vertical lines. Again, all the lines in this sketch, you're going to go towards the vanishing point, or you're going to be horizontal or perfectly vertical. You can use a tape measure, a ruler here. I prefer to work freehand. The light is going to shine on the buildings from the left, and the same, I'm using a very warm tone there. And then for the buildings that are going to be in the shade, I'm using the cool combination of colors. The magic of understanding perspective is that you can use it to create any scene that you like. And sometimes after I wake up and I have an interesting dream, I like to sketch it down and create an atmosphere and a space that doesn't exist other than my own mind, which is unique. It will make your painting be absolutely unique and very interesting. Note that the position of the sun is going to be on the right because it's going to shine on the building from the left. You want to create a bit of a contrast. Now for the warm eye level, 1-point perspective drawing, we're still at the 1-point perspective drawing level. We're going to be making the same vanishing point, and then all the lines are going to be radial, and this time we don't have to bother with horizontal and vertical lines. We're just going to see the tops of the buildings, and I chose skyscrapers for this one just to emphasize the effect even more. So now imagine you're a little a dog, cat, or a little worm looking up and seeing all these tall buildings. You can play with these effects and just create a different way of seeing a scene that is pretty common, used by other artists, and that way you can be unique. Consider light all the time. Ask yourself, where is the light coming from? So what is it going to shine onto, and what are the shaded areas, and what are the lightest areas? Then we're creating a contrast with that, and I'm going to be showing you that more visible in this sketch with the sun. The sun's going to be on the right where the darkest buildings are, and it's going to shine on the buildings on the left. Assuming the streets are not very close and the sun still has a space to shine between those two rows of buildings. I'm using a cerulean blue, and I'm contrasting that with the buildings on the left. Now for the 2-point perspective drawing, we are going to have 2 vanishing points, and from those vanishing points I'm going to have radial lines. So it's basically an overlap of what we did the first time, and wherever the lines are going to meet, that's where we create the base or the top of the building. And I prefer to start with the top here and just work my way down, since the bird will see the tops of the building, so we have to see the tops, and then the bottoms are going to be hidden. So from that square that's going to be created by the intersection of the lines, I'm going to be extruding it down. And I'm going to put these buildings on the row and separate the row through these 2 lines, which are going to go again to the same vanishing point, and it's going to just make the illusion of a road. You can add more or less buildings here. You can add more or less buildings here. I decided to just have less to show you the main effect, which is the goal for this exercise. The more you're going to practice these, the better you're going to be at reading and understanding your image. If you work with the reference image, or if you do plein air, this is very useful. It will save you a lot of time, and it will just make the process a lot more intuitive. If you're going to be doing plein air painting, most likely you're going to be using the 1-point perspective eye level, human eye level, and 2-point perspective human eye level most often. But if you paint from your imagination, you can do, you're going to be using the other 2 perspective views also. I like to make these exercises when I am taking a trip and I have records of some of the sketches that I create on my Instagram. I try to post there and just update people on the location that I'm at and just show them a pretty sketch of the area. It is useful to keep your hand working and just keeping that memory muscle going. Now for the human eye level, for 2-point perspective, I'm going to have the same 2 vanishing points and line of horizon towards the bottom of the sketch, and the buildings are going to go up high. And the same, I'm using these radial lines, and wherever they're going to touch, that's where I'm going to be starting the base of the building. And I'll be building squares that I'm going to extrude up and just vary here on the size and shape. Some buildings are going to have antennas, others might be round, others have very unique shapes actually. You can look up different architectural sites around the world online and you will get plenty of ideas. Or you can sketch in your travels. That is my absolute favorite thing to do when I travel. I take a small sketchbook with me, and while I'm waiting for the bus or the metro, I do a quick 2-3 minute sketch, and that forces me to not get stuck in the details, obsess over that, and just get the main essence of the view and move on to the next one. It's all about practice. The more you practice, the better you're going to be. You don't have to create a lot of masterpieces. You just have to create volumes and volumes of sketches and studies. Because we're doing a watercolor painting, we use the warm tones, very light, diluted. They show the lid areas, and then I'm using the one shade layer, and then I'm gonna wait for everything to be dry and build up with the dark details, which are gonna be the same mix of colors, just less water in the mix. You can use some wet on wet work on the details, but most artists do use dry wet paint on dried layers, and I think that looks very clean, controlled. You can control it much better. If you want more dreamy view, more dreamy atmosphere, then you can work a lot wet on wet. And if you want to focus the eye of the viewer on some particular area, then you can work wet on wet everywhere else and just do a little bit of wet work on dry for that focus area. I'm going to show the bottoms of the buildings just so you can see what is the correct way to construct the drawing, but usually you're not going to be seeing that unless you're going to be doing a surrealist type of representation or a concept sketch if you're an architect, or maybe product sketch. But I want to show you how it's built correctly. Now moving on to the 3-point perspective drawing, and starting from the bird's eye level, I'm using 3 vanishing points. One horizon line, which is going to be that vertical line that is going to host those 2 vanishing points, and then at the top we're going to have actually at the bottom we're going to have that third vanishing point, which is going to be the furthest point from the bird or from our eye from the helicopter. But the principle is exactly the same as the one for the 2 vanishing points. So we're building that grid that is going to host the tops of our buildings, the ceiling part, and then instead of going perfectly vertical down, we're going to go with radial lines that are all going to be stopping to the same vanishing point. An exaggerated perspective, what I'm doing right now. But if you want something more subtle, then you can stop a little bit higher and not touch that third vanishing point. Now, depending on how forced your perspective is. Now, moving on to a little bit of a color in there, I'm repeating basically the same steps. And I'm sorry, my camera just died. This part of the footage is gone, but I finished the last 2 perspectives using exactly the same steps, and I hope you guys made it through the end, and this exercise will be very useful to make you create more realistic and more interesting paintings in general. Now let me know if you found this helpful, and if you'd like to see more videos like this one, and which part are you more interested in seeing in more detail. Thank you so much for watching, and keep practicing.